Okay, hello, welcome. First of a couple of videos for the fretboard. I've been asked to do some sound clips I'm going to do. This is actually the first one. Just have a look around a rack and actually go through the rack 12, which I've just bought. Really nice, just so people get an idea. So, rack. This is my rack. Mine says Mozilla cab. My 4U rack. So, Matrix GT1000 on the top. Axe 2 in the middle, and the rack 12 controller in the bottom. We'll go through that later. Now around the back, this is where it gets interesting. I've got rear rack rails. So I have on the back, there's a blank patch bay, there's a 4-way surge power strip screwed in there. Then I have a patch bay that I built myself. And right down the bottom on the rear loaded is a G90 wireless relay. That's back to back with the rack 12. They're both small units, so it fits really well. Okay, so rack 12, this little baby here. What is it? Well, it's a MIDI controller, works via SysX messages, and it's a real-time controller for the Axe FX. You have 12 rotary knobs, 8 there, 4 there. Each of these rotary knobs can be assigned to any rack 12 function or any Axe FX function that has a SysX message attached to it. Basically, that means anything that Axe Edit can control, you can assign to one of these controllers. Each controller is also a switch. You press it and it switches. You can assign any rack 12 or Axe FX switch commands to any one of those controls. There are 16 pages of controls which you can go through, and I'll go quickly how you can go through those. So you can assign a lot of real-time control to this unit. But not only do the single switches, there are also double clicks and press and hold functions for each knob. Now they are not on a page-to-page basis. That is one function per knob, all the way through the pages, and they can only be assigned to rack 12 functions. There are functions such as you can to scroll through the pages. You could assign 12 to page navigation. You press and hold it, the display changes, which we'll go through in a minute. You then rotate the dial and it scrolls through the pages of rack 12 settings. You can also have direct access. So I've got it set up. This button 8 is always store. Now even though it's an Axe FX setting, it's actually a rack 12 setting, so it doesn't matter what page I'm on. If I press and hold that, it stores the preset amended as I have done with the dials. The others, 1 to 7, are direct access to page 1 to 7. I'm only using 5 at the moment, so it's plenty. If I need more, I can use the 4 up here, the 3 up here. I'll look at that when I come to it. So if I want to access a function that's on page 4, I press and hold that, and I go to page 4. Really, really good. So, how does it work? Well, we'll boot the Axe up. Rack 12 is already up. It's already polling to the Axe FX. Connecting. While it's waiting for the Axe FX to boot up, bing, Axe FX boots up. I don't know if you can see that. Hello, we're now on the Axe FX. And it's immediately picked up the EQ page, because that's the last page I used. So I will press and hold my first page. There we go. So my first page, it's probably quite hard to see that actually. My first page is almost default for the rack 12, and it's my main amp. So I have, as it shows on the top, drive, bass, mid, treble, presence, depth, master volume and patch level. The display shows you those along with the values. Now the colour scheme, the yellow indicates these first 5. The 3 in pinky red, which you can't really pick up on this screen, are these 3. And the 4 at the bottom of the blue ones is the group of 4 on the right hand side. Now that gets useful when you're not on the first default page, because it just tells you, it's an easy guide to which button you've got to press. Now some of the other functions you can do that are Rack 12 functions, if I double press the drive button, that will show me the switches that are assigned. So there we go. So I have assigned boost, cut, fat, bright, as in bright switch. Don't worry about the type, I'm not really using it, that's default. This one here I've got assigned to XY. Now what that does is any block, any AxeFX block that is being controlled on this page, that will toggle between the X and the Y states, and it will immediately drag up that setting. So we'll turn that back to, he says, that should time out. I'm going to time out in a minute. Okay, I forgot to mention this, when you actually move these knobs, it changes and it shows you the knob, and it then moves in real time. So it shows you a guide of where you are and the actual function. That times out as well, so after so long it just reverts back to the initial page. Now where was I? Oh yeah, XY. So if I double click this, I'm now, what happened there? Okay, that didn't work. I'll just turn the boost on. I'm still getting used to this. Maybe it's not that one, maybe it was press and hold. No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, I'll have to have a look at that in a minute. I've only literally had this today, so it was working earlier. But yeah, you can XY state it and it will switch between the X and the Y. I've got it on single switch, not double switch, that's why. Boost off. Go back to that. Yeah, sorry, so I've got the XY in a single state. So there you go. Switch XY, drives now at 710, back to the Y state, back to 5.63. I've got to hold this closer really, it's a bit awkward. So yeah, that's all useful. As you can see from here, these group of 4 on the right hand side, I've currently got set as the input trim, the overdrive for amps that have them, definition, and the bright control. It's not the bright switch, that's the bright control. It's done because those are the functions that I probably use the most on patch. Now, I don't see this as a replacement for AxeEdit. If you're at home and you're tweaking and you're using AxeEdit, use AxeEdit. If you're a front panel user, it helps, but it doesn't show you all the functions in one go, so you might still want to go the front panel. But for live use, you want to treat it like a real amp, just up the mids, what have you, as people fill up, and it soaks the treble up the presence. It is really useful. Okay, so what have we got on? What have I got on the other pages? Well, page 2 is my advanced amp settings, and you can see from the screen, the drive is now the saturation control. The switch toggles the sat on and off, and the rotary is the drive. I've then got dynamics on the bass. The mid and the treble work together, and it's to do with your resonance. It's your character, and what the character is, it's really, think of it as your mid-range resonance control. So you've got the frequency and the amount. You've then got dynamic presence and dynamic depth under the presence and the depth. The master volume is now sag, which I think works because it's a similar kind of thing, and then the level is still level. The 4 on the right hand side are now my negative feedback, my preamp hardness, my preamp bias, and my dynamic damping. Again, it's more a case of what is useful, just to use the buttons. I probably won't use the dynamic damping, it's just for buttons. So what else have I got? Page 3. Page 3 is my amp EQ. So what I've got here is the first 8 buttons are assigned to the 8 frequency sliders in the amp block graphic EQ, and the 4 at the side are my low resonance and high resonance in the speaker page. One is the frequency and one is the actual resonance. So between those, that's basically my amp EQ. I only ever used an 8-band EQ in the amp block, so it works fine for me. If you're using the 5-band like the Mezzo ones, then the first 5 will work 1 to 5, the other 3 just won't do anything. Page 4 Page 4 is my effects levels. Really can't see this very well. Come on, clock on. It's not. There we go. It's my effects levels. Now I don't use many effects, but basically I have reverb, delay, chorus, flanger, phaser, tremolo, rotary and compressor. And that is the level of each of those effects. The ones on the right are my drives, and what I have is drive 1 on the top, drive 2 on the bottom, and I have gain and level. So I can adjust the gain in my drive boxes and the overall level to compensate on that page. Page 5, which is the last one I'm using, is my effects mixes. So again, same thing. Reverb, delay, chorus, flanger, phaser, tremolo, rotary, compressor, effects mix values. And as before, the 4 here are my 2 drives, and that is my mix and my tone. So I can affect the tone of the drive block and its mix as well if I need to. Now that's all I've got set up at the moment, but quite frankly for live use that gives me, let me turn that around, that gives me pretty much everything I would use. It's all the major amp functions that you would get from pretty much any amp, including your presences and your depths. It's a few other bits and pieces that can help, sag levels and what have you. It's your EQ within the amp block, along with the resonance is for the speaker page. It's all my effects mix levels, mix figures and levels, along with my drive, level, tone and gain. So does it work? Well, it does. Oh, I'm going to run out of time before this clicks out and I haven't got the guitar on. So quick display. The only thing you can't control over here, as far as I can tell, is global figures, which is a shame. I'd like to use the global reverb and global mix and also the global EQs, but because it's not available on AxeEdit, because they're not used for patch design, which is what AxeEdit is designed for, they haven't got 6x commands attached to them, so it can't be implemented. If Cliff decides to do that for us, then we'll be able to implement it. So let's have a look. So this is a Marshall. It's quite low, but that's a Marshall. So that's the Marshall. So I go to move the gain. That's the mix level for the reverb. Because that's what I've got it on. Go back to the main function. Drive. Brightness. Definition, turn that down a bit maybe. Input gain up. So that works quite well. There are another couple of functions, let me put this up here for a little bit. There are another couple of functions that I am going to assign to these that I haven't done at the moment, and that's compare function. What it does, when it loads its settings up from the AxeFX, it stores it in its memory. When you then play real time, it alters the patch. At any time you can revert to your original settings, because all it does is it loads them back from its memory, sends all the MIDI data back to the AxeFX, and you're back to your normal patch as it was. You can also compare, and what it does is it then saves a copy of your adjustments, reloads the basic, sends that to AxeFX, so that gives you your original patch, and then when you toggle it back again, it then brings in your adjusted settings. Now it does take a while, between 3 and 5 seconds. There's a compare and a fast compare. They work in slightly different ways. The fast compare, you may lose a couple of your changes, apparently. I've not tried it yet. But the delay is basically down to how long it takes to send all the MIDI commands of all the parameters, because it has to do everything that you've adjusted, so it sends all the SysX commands that you've assigned back to the AxeFX. It is useful because you don't have to remember what your settings were, you don't have to toggle backwards and forwards, patch up, patch down, where you then lose your adjustment settings.